Welcome back to Yerushalmi Terumot. We are holding at Nun Tes Amud Aleph. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And we're up to the Mishnah, yeah? Halacha base. Okay. So we've got a Baal Bayis who is Hamachil es Palav as Archav Truma. So he's giving Truma to his workers, his guests. And he gives them Truma. Now they're not meant to eat Truma. They're Zorin. They're not meant to eat Truma. And he gives it to them by mistake. Well, there's money to pay. Hu Meshalem, that's a Cohen. He, the Baal Bayis who gave them to eat, he has to pay the principal amount. Okay, to a Cohen. But hey, now the workers themselves, Meshalem es HaChomesh, they have to pay the extra fifth. The workers or the guests have to give the Cohen the extra fifth. The Zoh who eats Truma B'Shogeg has to pay it's a kapara for the Avera. Now, although they ate B'Shogeg, now really they should actually be paying Truma. Chulin, they should be paying Chulin because Truma was eaten wrongly. But Meir agrees to pay the Chulin to the Cohen instead of the guests. So the Baal Bayis pays the Chulin and he's paying for them. He's fulfilling their duty. Okay, you ask me what? You ask me why they should have to pay the Chomesh. Divrei Rav Meir. So Rav Meir holds that the ones who actually benefited, it's a kapara at the end of the day. So the ones who benefited should pay the fifth. Right? The actual principle is the Baal Bayis. But the ones who benefit should pay the fifth. And they said, hey, Meshamin, Keren V'Chomesh. They have to pay for everything. They're the ones who ate. They should pay the principal and the fifth. Now, it's a shogeg going here. We're all talking about shogeg cases, but that's what they have to do. Now the Baal Bayis, Meshalem Lohen, Demei Sudasan. Now, he has to pay them the amount for a meal. He obviously has to feed them, so he has to pay them the amount of a meal. But they have to pay the Truma and the Chomesh as well. Right? They ate Truma B'Shogeg, they should pay the Cohen everything, like any Israel who eats. Okay? Obviously the Baal Bayis never knew he's giving them Truma, right? Otherwise, whatever, the din will be different. Okay? So what have we got here? He has to pay the Cohen, the Keren. The Baal Bayis in the first chapter is Rameir, he's a din gazlan. Okay? Some learn he has to pay Cholin Mesukanin, like the amount of Truma which was eaten, which means it's not just a din gazlan, but maybe he has to give it the Tashum Keren for the Truma that was eaten B'Shogeg. Maybe he has to pay the Cholin. Okay, Cholin Mesukanin, whatever. Question whether it's a din gazlan or not. Alright, what have we got here now? Let's see. Hagoynev Truma, someone who steals Truma from a Cohen, he didn't eat it, but he stole it. Meshalem Tashlomei Kefel. You have to pay double. Demei Truma. So you have to pay double, like the din of a Ganav, and you pay the value based on the value of the payers of the Truma that he stole. Achla, if the Ganav ate it B'Shogeg, Meshalem Shnei Koronim B'Chomesh. He pays two principals and a fifth, as follows. Keren v'chomesh min ha'cholin, one principal and a fifth from cholin mesukan, right? Like a zah who eats truma v'shogeg, you have to pay with cholin, which can become truma. The keren and an extra principal to make truma, value of the fruit of the truma that he stole, that's the din kefel, right? That's the din that you have to pay double. Ganav trumas hegdash. If he stole Truma of Hegdash, Ba'achala, and he ate it, B'Shogeg, Meshalem, so that's land that Hegdash owned, for example, yeah? And there's Truma from that land. Ba'achla, and he ate it, B'Shogeg, Meshalem Shnei Chumshin B'Keren. So apart from the Keren to Hegdash, he has to pay 2/5. Now we'll see that in the Gemara. One basically is eating Truma B'Shogeg, and one is Me'ila, right? He's eating Hegdash property, and that's also a din of a fifth. He doesn't have to add another Keren. We did kefel. You don't have to pay kefel to hegdash. There's no din of double payments to hegdash. She'ein behegdash tashlumei kefel. There's no double payments when it comes to hegdash is concerned. Okay? But you do, if you get benefit from hegdash, you do have to add a fifth on the keren. So Rizal, let's say you stole truma of hegdash, you ate it b'shogeg. Apart from the keren to hegdash, you have to pay 2/5. One is with payros of chulin b'sukan. Right, you've got eating truma b'shogeg and you've got me'ila b'hegdash. Okay, so you've got both of those. Okay. Ein Meshamin min leket. You can't pay keren or the chomesh from leket, the gleanings, shikha min hapeah, min hefka, that which is odorless, v'lo b'maser rishon shenitla terumosai, nor from maser rishon where trumas maser had already been separated. Now the reason is, now maser rishon where trumas maser has been separated has got a din like chulin. Chulin Masukun, perfect chulin. So why can't you use it to pay truma? The reason is, before Trumas Maaseh was separated, it wasn't fit for these tashlumin. Right, we'll see. Once it's possible for making these payments, it doesn't become fitting later on, even if the Trumas Maaseh is separated. So basically it was at a stage, it's got to be something fitting to be Kodesh. Yeah? That's when it's something fitting to be Kodesh. So you can only use Peres Chulin Masukun, right? Perfect Chulin, which is Tahar. That's what you can use to make these payments. Okay? And it's got to be also fitting in the past to be separated for Truma. So basically, if you have fruit which was never suitable, or it never had a chiyuv of Trumas and Maestris, right? It wasn't Bichlal chiyuv of Trumas and Maestris, and it could not be separated for Truma, then it's not fitting to be Kodesh, and you cannot use it to make payments for Truma. You get that? So anything which went through a stage where it wasn't fitting to be separated as Truma cannot be used now to make repayments for Truma. That's what we're saying over here. Okay? Yeah. Okay. In fact, he says here, actually, the notes, he says, Maser Rishon, you take Choros Maser out of it, in some ways that's worse, it's more chomor than chulin. Maser Rishon, before you separate Trumas Maser, has got Kedusha to a degree. And it's like Hegdush, Maser Sheni. It's not fitting to be Kodesh because it's already holy. Peres Chulin, even before you separate Trumas Maser, it had no Kedusha. And therefore it's not excluded from something fitting to be Kodesh, and you can use it to pay Truma, to Shlomei Truma, after you separate Trumas and Maseres. Okay. Ein Meshamin. We did this, but Maser Rishon Shnit L'Trumasa V'Lai Maser Sheni V'Hegdush Sheniftu, all from Hegdush, which is, even though it's been redeemed, Hegdush is Mom and Gavaya, according to Meir, right? So Maser Sheni is also not your money; it's Mom and Gavaya, it's heavenly money. So according to Meir, you can't pay Trumas with Hegdush or Maser Sheni because you can't putty yourself fulfilling your duty with money which is not yours, right? He says here, you can't use Hegdush money to use it as payments for Truma, which was eaten wrongly. Right? The Chachamim allow you to pay to a Cohen the payments of Truma, but Eilu with these things. Right? Rameh holds, you pay a keren, let's say, Peres Chulin, which is Masukan, which is fruit of your Truma, which was eaten. Chachamim hold the Polim are the ones that we're going to see now. So we're going to see this now, yeah. So what's the machlokes between Rameh and the Chachamim? So we first spoke about a Balabais who gives the workers Truma b'Shoigeg. And who pays what? So we brought two opinions. Okay? The first opinion said the Balabais pays the Keren and they pay the extra. And then Chachamim said what? They pay everything and he just gives them a meal. He gives them money for a meal. So let's see. So Rameh said the owners pay the Cohen, the Keren. Rabbanan Amrin, the Chachamim also said Meshamin, that the owners pay the workers the value of their meal. Ma be'ne'an, so what's the difference between them? They both hold the Balabais has to pay the value of the meal that the workers ate. So what's the difference between them? Amrav Yochanan, Ika Su'uda be'ne'an. The argument is between them on who has to do the bothering to prepare the food and all the cooking that the Balabais has to pay his workers. The bother to prepare the meal is on the Balabais. So he says in the case of our Mishnah, the Balabais who's given the workers Truma b'Shogeg, he has to pay the workers payment, he has to pay the food as a payment as Karen, the principal, to the Cohen. Right? He has to give them a prepared meal. So it's like he's selling them the food. Just like a seller has to give the buyer a fit thing, wherever they've agreed, the Balabais has to give the workers prepared food. Right? If you sell something which is not yours, and the person has to give it back to the owner. You can't start puttering yourself by giving it back to the buyer. You have to make sure the owner gets it back. So Rameir holds as well. You are chayiv, balabais is chayiv to give the workers. If he gives them truma, which is not his, he can't give them truma. He has to give them other food in its place. He can't putter himself with just the money of the meal, so he has to pay the keren to the Cohen in the place of the workers, right? Because he has to give them prepared food, whatever it is. Okay, let's carry on. Rabbanan Chachamim said, no, the obligation to prepare the meal is on the workers, and he is chayav just to give them money to go buy their food. Therefore, they paskin, in our case of our Mishnah, the workers pay the keren to the Cohen, and he just pays them the value of the meal. So he pays them the value of the food, the raw ingredients, and that's it. That's all they get. Rosh Shimon Lakish, he said, Tefela Benon. He said the argument between them, who is responsible to get the chulin, which is Masukah, the chulin, to pay back the keren of the Cohen? Who is responsible to go and to buy this stuff? Rameah, but Tefela the Balabais. The responsibility to actually get the chulin fruit to pay the keren is on the balabais. So he says he should pay the keren to the Cohen. But Rabbanan the Chachamim said Tefela Lapailin. Responsibility to deal with the chulin is on the workers, on the keren on the workers. Therefore, in our Mishnah, the workers have to pay the keren to the Cohen, and the balabais just gives them some money. Rabbi Vav Shem Shemei Lakish, Ha Lama Zedoma. He gives a parable. What does it compare to? You sell something to a friend, but it turns out it's not yours. So you can't putter yourself by just giving the money to the buyer. I mean, you have to give him an item like what was agreed. He's buying a certain item, you have to give him the item as agreed. You can't just say, oh, here's the money of it. So similarly in our Mishnah, the Balabais obligated himself to feed the workers. He gave them truma, which is not his. He can't putter himself with money. He has to give them a meal. That's the Pshat of Meir, right? He has to give them a meal.
What is a one-of-a-kind item?
Huh? Sorry?
If he sold a one-of-a-kind item,
yeah.
Then the Lekeach can't get the one-of-a-kind item.
He has to give it to the end person. So
then the only thing he can give is back his money.
If there's nothing else, if he can't get it, he can't get it. So here's a meal, though. He can give them a meal. So he says here. One second. The Chachamim say they don't have to pay the keren to the Cohen, because although he has to give the food, he doesn't have to give them peros which is fitting to be kodesh, like peros needed for payments of truma. He can give them hefker. Okay. And the keren now, to pay the Cohen with fruit fitting to be kodesh, okay, that's instead of the truma that was eaten. So this is the workers. That's Machlokes Rameir and the Chachamim. Okay. So he's given a mashal and said what? Just like you have to give the price, you can't just give him the money back. Then the Gemara says, so if this mashal or Rebavo was said, according to Rish Lakish's explanation, I understand. Based on this, Kuj Rameir and the Chachamim, now remember there were two Pirushim here. What's the argument Rameir and the Chachamim? So Rabbi Yochanan said, the argument is who's the main meal? Whose responsibility is it to prepare the main meal? Right? Was it on the owner, or is it on the workers, or the balabais? Now, Rav Shimon Lakish said, no, the argument between them is who has to bother to buy the fruit. Remember? We gave that pshat. That was Machlokes Rameir and the Chachamim. Who has to bother to buy the fruit? So let's see. So if you're going to tell me the whole argument is based on who has to bother to buy the fruit, and the ways Rish Lakish explained it, I understand. But according to this, according to Rameir and the Chachamim, he has to bother, he has to prepare the meal for the workers. So he is the one who has to pay the food to his workers. And if he's got some seller, he's made an agreement, let's say, with a lekeach on buying something particular, and balabais, he's given his workers truma, which is not his. He's like someone who sells an item to his friend. It turns out it's not his. I get that. But in Rabbi Yochanan, if the mashal or bavo was said based on Rabbi Yochanan's explanation, which was to do with who's the main meal and is it him or that. Now Rabbi Yochanan said, he said the argument. And Rabbi Yochanan said the main argument is who's the meal is obligated on the meal. Who has to bother prepare the meal that the balabais has to pay the workers? Now, according to this, Reb Meir is the one who holds the Baal Habayis has to give the workers proper food, but the Chachamim say, no, you just give them money. And it comes out, according to them, the chiyuv of the Baal Habayis to the workers is not the same as a sale. It's not that you're buying an item and you bought the wrong item and it's not yours. According to the Chachamim, according to Rabbi Yochanan's version of events, it's just he just owes them a bit of money, that's all. It's not a case of a sale or buying something which is not yours. So the mashal doesn't really fit in. But and you're comparing the din of our Mishnah to the din of selling something, it doesn't really fit in where the Chachamim holds, according to Rabbi Yochanan, you're just giving them money for food. It doesn't fit in. So Gemara says, you're right. You're right. This mashal fits in like the other version. It's only according to Reb Meir's version, according to that, and not according to the Chachamim's view. Now we have another argument, another distinction between Reb Meir and the Chachamim, another way of looking at what the difference is between them. So Reb Meir says, the difference between them is for the difference in prices between a meal from Chulin to a meal of Truma. You hear that? Truma costs less than Chulin, right? So the difference in price between a meal of Chulin to a meal of Truma. Let's see. For example, let's say the Baal Habayis made an arrangement with the workers to give them, let's say, type of bread which has got honey in it, made of flour of Chulin, and he ended up giving them Truma now, bread which is made from flour of Truma. So he gave them a type of food which he agreed with them from the beginning, but instead of Chulin, he gave them Truma. So according to Meir, he has to pay now the Duvshani Chulin. He has to pay the Chulin food like he made the agreement with them. According to the Chachamim, you have to pay the money based on the difference in price between the Truma food and the Chulin food. Okay, you just give the difference in price. I mean, although in the beginning he agreed to give Chulin, Lemaisa he gave them Truma. So he doesn't have to give them now Chulin, just give the difference between the Chulin one and the Truma one. Okay. Now, the Gemara comes back to the din of Reb Meir that Baal Habayis has to pay the Cohen the keren instead of the workers. Now, lo kvar ochlu, now they ate their meal. If you're going to tell me, according to Reb Meir, he has to pay the workers a nice meal, but in our Mishnah, he gave them something to eat. So why does he now have to give them more money? Why does he now have to give a Cohen Chulin for keren instead of the workers? I mean, the workers have had their meal. Why should he pay the keren when they're the ones who've had their meal? So Gemara answers to command Amar like the one who holds that if you eat tevel and other forbidden foods, nafsha shel adav chataben, you're so sick of them. If you find out you ate something which was tevel, you're sick of it. You don't feel you've benefited. So he's gone and given them truma, and they are Israelim, right? Then they feel as if he's not giving them anything at all, and that's why he has to give them food for a meal. What time are we going till today? Are we okay till 10 past today? Yeah? Okay. Go and have Trumas Hegdish. If a person stole Truma of Hegdish, and then it was eaten b'shoigeg, then he has to pay 2/5 and a keren. Now, we're going to see, what does it mean, 2/5 and a keren? We're going to see this. It doesn't mean what you think it means. What do I mean by that? You're not going to end up paying, in one situation, 2/5 and a keren. You're not going to do that. Rav Yana is going to tell us there's two cases. In one case you'll pay a 5th, and in another case you'll pay a 5th. But not that in one case you'll pay 2/5. You'll pay 1/5 in one situation and 1/5 in another. But not that in one situation you'll pay 2/5. So let's see now. Let's start in Himas Nisa. This, to understand it, let's start in Himas Nisa. Our Mishnah is one who eats Truma b'shoigeg. When you pay 2/5, it's talking about two separate cases. Yeshbai, if you have in what is eaten kazais, which is the shear, if the food that was eaten was a kazais size, which would obligate a person to shlumi truma, he's eaten truma b'shoigeg, he's eaten a whole kazais, but ve'ebo shava pruta, but it's less than the amount to be liable for me'ila. Me'ila on hegdosh has got to be a pruta's worth. So in this case, you've got a kazais is eaten, but it's not a pruta's worth. So the truma side is the problem. Me'ila side is not the problem. So at least he's not chayav a chomesh for it because it was less than a pruta. So meshalem lashevet. You pay a 5th to one of the kohanim because you've eaten truma b'shogeg, you don't have to pay a fifth to hegdush because of me'ilah. You hear that? As we said, it's less than a pruta. So there's no din me'ilah of hegdush. You don't have to pay a chomesh to hegdush. You did eat truma, you have to pay a fifth to a Cohen. Okay? The Torah says in the pasuk about truma, v'ish ki yochal kodesh b'shgaga. The chiyuv of paying of truma on eating truma less than a kazayis, the Torah uses the lashon achila, is only on a kazayis or more. Okay? And me'ilah, the Torah doesn't use a lashon of achila. So if you get any benefits, it doesn't depend on a kazayis. The shir is a shava pruta. If you get benefit shava pruta, then you're chaim mishum me'ilah. Okay, so what we got? Yeshba. Now we come to the second case. Yeshba shava pruta. If there is a pruta's worth, which is the shir obligating mishum me'ilah with hegdush, right? There is a pruta's worth. But kazayis. But there's no kazayis of truma here. Then what? Meshalem lehegdush. You pay the fifth for hegdush because of me'ilah, but you don't have to pay the fifth because of eating truma b'shogeg. So we've said so far, if there's one reason, you pay a fifth for that. If there's the other reason, you pay the fifth for that. Okay? Now, since it was, let's say it was shava pruta, okay, you'll have to pay keren b'chomesh because of me'ilah. So these 2/5 is not, it's not a straightforward explanation of what you'd think the halacha is telling you. The halacha, you think it says you pay 2/5. And he says, well, actually, there's 2 cases. In each case, you pay 1/5.
Unless it's a shava prota.
Yeah, exactly. So why didn't he choose a case like this? In both cases, you pay keren b'chomesh. I mean, he ate kazayis, not shava pruta. And then in the other case, he ate not kazayis, but shava pruta. We pay keren b'chomesh. Why doesn't it say, why, he says actually, they ask, why does the Mishnah say you pay 2 chumshin and 1 keren? Why doesn't it say you pay 2 chumshin and 2 kerens? If each case is keren v'chomesh, so you pay 2 chumshin, 2/5, and 2 kerens. So the answer, the Mishnah is stressing, when you, one who steals truma, you have to pay keren, another keren as kefel. One who steals truma from hegdush is potter from kefel, right? With the truma from hegdush, you're potter from kefel. So you'll only pay 1 keren.
But we said you don't pay on kodesh.
No, on hegdush you don't pay kefel.
So you're saying truma is not considered hegdush?
No, that's right. Yeah. It's only hegdush, not truma. Truma you wouldn't pay kefel. Yeah. So what have we got here? You're asking why, if there's a kazayis, but there's no shava pruta, you're paying keren v'chomesh, and the other way around as well. Yeah. Why we didn't come to a case where it's both? Why I don't know. This is the chiddush of what he's saying. This is trying the Mishnah. It's talking about 2 separate cases. That's what he wants to say that the Mishnah is telling us. Actually, we're going to come to now. Yesh by kazayis. What about there is a kazayis? And yesh by shava pruta. You got a shava pruta as well. It's machlek samaroim. Who do you pay the chomesh to? Shim ba'ava b'shem Rav Yochanan b'shalem lakodesh. You pay the fifth. Apart from the keren you pay to hegdush, you pay the fifth to hegdush as well. Rav Yochanan amar b'shalem l'shevet. No, you pay the fifth to one of the kohenim. Right? He agrees the keren you pay to hegdush. And he holds the chomesh you pay to kohenim because usually when it comes to hegdush you can give it to any kohen. The tashlum chomesh you can give to any kohen. The payment doesn't really belong to the kohen, the owner of the truma, like the chus of the keren. The kohen doesn't have a right to the chomesh to the same degree. He says, even though, let's say, you're giving hegdush, all the truma might improve, chus paying the keren, but it doesn't include the chomesh. Okay, it's not necessarily his. So a zar who eats truma has to pay the chomesh to the kohenim. All right. So he says here, the 2/5 are 2 separate cases. That's what it is. Hegdush, which is a kazayas and not shav pruta, you pay the chomesh to the kohen. Trumas hegdush, whether it's a pruta, whether it's kazayas or not, you pay the chomesh to hegdush. And kunter Yochanan in the 2 cases, hegdush, which is kazayas, whether it's pruta or not, you pay the chomesh to a kohen. And hegdush, which is a pruta but hasn't got kazayas, you pay the chomesh to hegdush. So they're trying to work out 2 cases as to what the case is talking about. So what have we got here? So yesh by kazayis v'yesh by shava pruta, shim ba'avav b'shem Rabbi Yochanan, and he said v'shalom l'kodesh, pay the fifth to the hegdush. And Rabbi Yochanan Amar Mishalem L'Sheva, he says, no, you pay the Cohen. Reb Zira, the din of Shum Bava, where you've eaten a kazais and a pruta, and you pay the chomesh to hegdush, gezeras hakosovu. This is written in the Torah. V'ish ki yochal kodesh b'shgaga. He will add a fifth, and he gives to the Kohen to the kodesh. The pasuk joins together payment of the fifth to tashlum of the keren to tell you in this situation lamakim shekeren mahalech, wherever the keren goes, which is to hegdush, sham hachomesh mahalech. That's where the fifth goes as well. So the fifth should follow hegdush. That's what he's saying here. Okay.
In Yerushalmi is not going to do like Dovid and ask, well, why doesn't Rabbi Yochanan?
No. What do they do with that pasuk? What do they do with that pasuk? He says the keren goes to hegdush, and he's learning this situation. The chomesh goes to who gets the keren, and even though the Cohen is magdish the truma, and he gives it to hegdush, all that's going to improve. That's not the schus of the chomesh. It's not his. It doesn't go to the Cohen. It goes to where hegdush is.
So Yochanan says it goes to the Shevet. He must not agree with it.
Yeah, we agreed. Rabbi Yochanan held. Yeah, he goes to the Shevet. Right? Why? He says he agrees the keren goes to hegdush, but he holds the chomesh pay the kohenim. As opposed to keren that you give to the Cohen, the chomesh give to anyone. The schus of this payment is not of the Cohen who owns the truma. It's not his, like the schus of the keren. Even though the Cohen is magdish's truma, he gives it to hegdush, and all's going to improve. And the schus of the keren, but it doesn't include the chomesh. It's not. Therefore, Rabbi Yochanan holds you can pay the chomesh to kohanim, to whoever you want. Kahana. Now, Kahana argues on Rabbi Yochanan. In one situation, he says if you ate trumas hegdush and you ate it b'shogeg, apart from the keren to the hegdush, mishalem shnei chumshin, you actually pay 2/5. Chomesh lashevet, 1/5 to any Cohen, because you ate truma b'shogeg, and the chomesh lehegdush, and a hegdush, a fifth to hegdush as well, because of meila. So, until now we understood, when you steal trumas hegdush, and you eat it b'shogeg, you're chayav 1/5. Comes along Kahana, he says, why shouldn't you be chayav 2? One because of truma b'shogeg, and one because of meila b'hegdush, right? So he learns the Mishnah's talking about a case where there's a kazais and a shava pruta, and if you eat it b'shogeg, apart from the keren to hegdush, you have to add 2/5. One for eating truma b'shogeg, and for that you can use peres chulin, one to the kohenim, and one because of meila b'hegdush, and that's given to hegdush. So in this situation where you didn't have a kazais, or it wasn't a shava pruta, then he agrees to Rav Yanai, you pay 1/5. But he holds actually you can pay 2. Why stop at 1 when you can pay 2? Now, trumas hegdush and you ate it, you don't have to add a keren as a din kefel. We said there's no din kefel with hegdush. Why not? She'ein hegdush tashlumei kefel. There's no din of kefel with hegdush. She'ne'ema, it says Yerushalmi Terumot Daf, and we learn there's no din kefel. It's only to your friend you pay double, but not to v'lo hegdush. Okay, now. In Mishnah, according to Meir, you don't pay truma from leket shikha peah, we said, or from hefka, or maser rishon where truma's maser has been separated, and not from maser sheni or hegdush that have been redeemed. And the Mishnah continued, v'chachamim matzhirin, the chachamim allow you to pay truma from these things, ba'elu. Now, what were the chachamim referring to? Well, there was a whole list, and the chachamim said, we allow you. What are they talking about? It stopped. Huh? Ooh. IT? All right. All right. Now, the Chachamim allow you to pay with a Cohen, with Tashlumei Truma, with these things. But we had a whole list. What did the Chachamim allow? The whole list? Or one of the last 2 things in the list? That was a long list. We said don't use leket, shikha, peah, hefka, maser rishon, the trumas maser has been separated, maser sheni or hegdush which have been redeemed. Don't use them. And the Chachamim allow. What do they allow? So now we're going to see now which situations Rameir said the Chachamim allow. What do they allow? He said when the Chachamim allowed, they only allowed the last 2 in the list. That's Maser Rishon when Truma has been taken, and Maser Sheni or Hegdish that were redeemed. But Lama, why do they only allow the last two? Allow you to pay Truma with these last two? In these situations, the fruit was fitting once to be used for separating Truma or Maser. Therefore, they're not excluded from that rule. It has to be fitting to be Kodesh, and therefore you can use to pay Tashlumin of Truma. Okay, you hear that? So they were fitting at one point to separate Truma and Maser. Okay, let's say these pairs were separated from Maser Rishon and Maser Sheni, and all the fruit was Tevel. They were fitting to be separated as Truma. And also, before they were Magdish as well, Peres Tevel, they were fitting to be Mufresh or Truma. So the Chachamim hold they were fitting to be Truma. They're not excluded from something fitting to be Kodesh, and you can use it to pay the Keren or the Chaimesh of Tashlumei Truma. Okay? Now, in the words of Rish Lakish, it sounds like the Chachamim agree with Meir with the other cases, that you can't use them for Truma, only the last two. So the Gemara asks, Lechet Shikha, Ein Bayan Zikas Truma Maestris. I mean, Lechet Shikha were also fitting to be Truma or Maser. As soon as you cut it, they can also be Truma Maser before it became Lechet or Shikha. Why do the Chachamim agree to Meir? You can't use them for paying your Truma. According to them, you can use anything which was fitting. These were Lechet Shikha were fitting to be Truma. Ela, he says, B'neshiras Lechet V'v'kamas Shikha V'v'kamas Peah Dan Kiyamin. We're talking about a case with the produce that became Leket as soon as it was cut. Instantly, it was cut, fell to the ground, Leket. And also that which became Shikha while it's connected to the ground. And the produce that became Peah while it's still connected to the ground. You hear that? It became so early on in its development, it became Leket, Shikha, Peah. In these situations, it was never fitting to be Truma or Maser, and the Chachamim therefore agreed to Meir, you cannot use it to make payments for Truma. So you hear that? That as soon as it was cut, it was Leket. As soon as it was cut, it fell on the ground, it had a din Leket. Some say it fell within the scythe, it never becomes to the hand of the kotzer. It was a din Leket as soon as it was cut. Alright? Now, what do we learn from here? That the stalks can become leket as soon as they're cut, before they reach the ground. He says, "Less hada pashta she'iltei de chilfai." Now, this surely can answer a question of chilfai. Let's see what chilfai asked. The chilfai sha'al leket b'deshira. When does the leket take place? Is it when it's cut and falls to the ground before it reaches the ground? What happens? Ma'oshi sheigdash. Is it leket while it's in airspace, or only when it reaches the ground? When does it become leket? Now, based on what we said, we can answer his question. It can be leket as soon as it's cut, while it's still in the air, before it reaches the ground. So the Gemara explains, according to Rish Lakish, the Chachamim agreed to Meir, you can't use Truma from leket, because it was never fitting to be Truma. As soon as it's cut, it's got Shem leket. Now, Rav Yochanan asks on this, on the view of the Chachamim, Rav Yochanan Amalei, he said to Rish Lakish, but we've learned in our Mishnah, leket. Islach Meima Leket Kapeah. Now, can you honestly say that Leket here is like Peah? It was never fitting to be Truma. It had a Shem Peah when it was connected to the ground. I mean, Leket could be Truma as soon as it's cut. So from the time it's cut, there is a period of time when it could be Truma before it reaches the ground. Now you got to see, we said like Peah. Now, are you going to, what's going to be with Peah here? Are you going to tell me it was never fit to be Truma like Peah? Already while it's still growing? Is that what you're going to say? So he learns the words of the Chachamim slightly differently. Rabbi Yochanan Amalei al Cohen. He learns that the words of the Chachamim in the Mishnah, which says don't use these things for Truma, is talking about all the cases there. Right? Rameh agrees you can't pay Truma from Leket, Shikha, Peah, Hefker, Maser Rishon. One second. No, sorry, the other way around. He learns the Chachamim are lenient with all the cases. So he says Rameh holds you can't use any of them, right? Not Leket, Shikha, Peah, Hefker, none of them. Maser Rishon, where Truma has been separated. And the Chachamim argue, according to his version, in all these cases, and they allow you to make payments of Truma with all these things. Right? Rabbi Yochanan learns, Chachamim Matirin Be'elu, going on Leket, and they argue in all the cases, all the situations, according to Rabbi Yochanan, the Chachamim hold you can pay Keren, or the Chaimesh of Tashlumei Truma, in all these things. Each one had a time when it was fitting to be separated from Truma, it was fitting to be Kodesh. Leket could be Truma from the time it's cut until it falls on the ground. Shikha, you'll have to say it's talking about a case where it was forgotten after it was cut. Shikas Omer, it was fitting to be Truma when it was cut until it was forgotten. Peah, it means Peah after it's been cut. You should really ideally leave Peah when it's still growing. But if you went and you cut it, you didn't leave it, you can leave it later on. Right? So it was fitting to be Truma from the time it was cut until you gave it a name Peah. Okay, fine. I think we will stop here, Rabbi Sarah.